Hello friends, we are here today in the first of two books to the Thessalonians. So we are in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 today. So what's happening here is Paul is writing this letter probably from Corinth. I had mentioned a couple books ago, we were in the book of Galatians, that Galatians was probably one of the first books written by Paul to the church. I say probably because this book is also probably the first book. So we can look at, we don't know which one was written. They were written just about at the same time. Now there's major differences between the church in Galatia and the church of Thessalonica. So the book of Galatians, it started out saying, I can't believe how fast you Galatians have messed up the gospel. You guys have gone far away from your understanding of the gospel, and I can't believe how fast you've done it. And so he's correcting the church in Galatia because he loves them. The church in Thessalonica, though, they were getting persecution from the authorities above. And their faith was strong. And basically everything that they were doing was good and right. You know, their faith was real and it was being played out in a really real way. And so they're seeing the strength of the church in Thessalonica, and he's really saying, just keep going. So he starts off the letter, you know, with a greeting in the same way. He says, you know, me and Timothy, and he says Silvanus. Now, you may have thinking, well, this is someone I've never heard of before. Who's this Silvanus? Well, it's Silas. He's just using a different word for it. So, he's saying, you know, we are writing this book, and it's clear that Paul is the main author here. But he's with these other companions, you know, and they're hearing of the wonderful faith that the Thessalonians have. Now, there's one thing that he says. This whole chapter is basically just an introduction, just saying what I said, that he's encouraging them to stay in the faith as they were. He's saying, you guys are doing it right, you're doing it well, and you're experiencing, you know, a lot of persecution, but you're doing great. And so he says, you know, I want you to continue. And he mentions something that he mentioned in the book of Corinth. In the book of Corinth, he was talking about how they need to be loving. And he says, you know, in Christianity, we have faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Now we can unpack that. But in this chapter, he mentions the same three. But he kind of pairs faith, hope, and love with something else. In the beginning, he says, you know, he's talking about the work of faith. Now, if you're into theology, you might look at that and be like, the work of faith. That kind of jives with my understanding of what faith is. You know, faith and work are two almost opposite things. And so if you read it in different translations, you know, it will say the work that comes from faith. You know, I think that's a better way of saying it. You know, I remember my first year of college. It was 20 years ago now. And I showed up to this new school, desperate for friends. And I see this girl that I remember from high school, very popular. And I see her and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope she'll be my friend, you know. So I start talking, but you know, if you're talking to the pretty girl, you need to make sure that if you just want like a normal friendship, that you just kind of throw that other stuff out, you know. You just make sure. So I mentioned to her, and this is a true story, that I got a girlfriend over the summer. You know, it was my first girlfriend, and so I'm just bringing up the fact that I already have a girlfriend. I'm not talking to her because I'm interested in her. And so she was like, oh, let me see a picture of her. And so I show her a picture, and she looks at my girlfriend at the time, and she goes, nice work. I always thought that was a really funny answer. It's 20 years ago, and I still remember that one thing that she said. She looks at me and she says, nice work. As if there was anything that I was working toward, really, to make this happen. I know what she was saying. She was saying, you got a pretty girl. Good job in what you've accomplished here. But nice work. Like, what did I do to get this relationship? But you could say that is the work. The work that came from it, I really did do something, but it didn't feel like work, because it was just what I wanted to do. And that's the way that faith works. If you have the faith, there'll be a logical outworking of what you do and what you want to do. So it's not like, I think if there's one point that I can make from this chapter, it's this: that the faith is first, and the work is just the outworking of the faith. And it's the same thing for the love. I know a couple of books ago I mentioned the English definition for the word love. It really means nothing. It means that you will do these things for this other person for no reason. The word love really means zero, like we use in tennis, when it's love, that means it's 0-0. So yeah, when you have love for someone, you're doing something without anything in return, but he's saying you guys have the labor of love. You think the labor of love, that seems in the same way that faith and work don't go together, the labor of love, but love really is a labor. You may be doing it for no reason because you might just care about this person, but it really is a labor. And then he says, and the steadfastness of hope, and the things we hope for, when he's talking to this church in Thessalonica, he's saying they're remembering what is to come. They're remembering the hope that keeps them there in the faith and in the love. So he's saying there's these three things, and they're all connected, and they all have these logical outworkings of how they exist. And he's saying you guys are doing that. I'm praying for you. I thank God for you that you guys have this faith and hope and love that comes across in work and labor and in steadfastness. So what does this mean for us? Well, it really means that we should do the same thing. We should realize that, first of all, that when we want to have a relationship with God, it comes from the faith first. You should stop trying to be a Christian and just work on that foundational relationship. If you are in a marriage, I have a wife right now that I love very much. It's a joy. It's a joy because we love each other first. And then everything that comes from that marriage comes from the love that I have for her first. If it wasn't for that, I don't know how easy it would be. So your relationship with God is a lot like marriage. Work on the love relationship that you have with God. And then the way that your Christianity will come out from that will work itself out. So that is 1 Thessalonians chapter 1. Have a great day.